The rain fell on the graveside in a steady, mournful drizzle, as if the heavens themselves were weeping for Alhaji Ibrahim Suleiman. Lagos's elite stood under a sea of black umbrellas, their heads bowed not just in grief, but in calculation. With the billionaire's sudden death, a vast empire was now up for grabs. His only son, Michael, stood at the head of the crowd, a picture of somber grief. Behind his dark sunglasses, however, his eyes were dry. He adjusted his black tie, already feeling the weight of his father's crown. "Today we commit to the earth a great man," the imam's voice boomed across the silent cemetery. "A visionary, a philanthropist, a—" "Stop!" A ragged voice, cracked with desperation, cut through the ceremony. Every head turned. A man emerged from the line of ancient mahogany trees, his clothes torn and filthy, his hair a wild mane. He smelled of the streets and cheap liquor. Security moved to intercept him, but he pushed through with a strength that belied his frail appearance. Michael stepped forward, his face a mask of cold fury. "How dare you? Remove this madman!" The homeless man ignored him, his wild eyes fixed on the ornate, closed casket. "She's not dead," he screamed, pointing a trembling, dirty finger at the coffin. "You're burying her alive." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Murmurs of shock and disbelief spread like wildfire. "Security," Michael barked. As guards grabbed the man's arms, he fought against them, his voice breaking with raw emotion. "Ibrahim, my brother, I heard her. I heard her knocking last night when they brought the coffin." The word brother hung in the humid air, sucking the oxygen from the place. Michael froze, his blood running cold. Brother, his father never had a brother. This was a lie, a scam. It had to be. But an old family friend, Alhaji Dantata, stepped forward, his eyes wide with recognition. "Wait," he said, his voice trembling. "By Allah, is that Tund?" The homeless man, Tund, crumpled to his knees in the mud, sobbing. "He promised Dantata, he promised he would never hurt her. Open the coffin. For the love of God, open it." A wave of panic and morbid curiosity swept the funeral. Michael stood rigid, his mind racing. This couldn't be happening. His father's dirty secret, the one he had worked so hard to bury, was crawling out of the grave itself. Under immense pressure from the horrified guests, Michael finally gave a sharp, reluctant nod. The pallbearers, with trembling hands, pried open the heavy lid of the casket. Inside lay Alhaji Ibrahim, peaceful in his final rest. But nestled in the silk-lined crook of his arm was something no one expected: a small, velvet box. The imam reached in and carefully opened it. Inside was not jewelry, but a single, faded photograph of two young boys, arms slung around each other's shoulders, smiling brightly, and a handwritten note. Alhaji Dantata took the note, his hands shaking as he read it aloud to the silent, stunned audience. "If this is found, then the truth has finally caught me. My greatest shame is not a business failure, but the betrayal of my brother Tund. I stole his life, his love, and his daughter. The child he believes is his, is mine. Aisha lives. Find her. Forgive me." The cemetery fell into a silence, so deep you could hear the rain kiss the leaves. Michael stared, his world crumbling. A daughter. He had a cousin, a direct competitor for the inheritance he believed was solely his. Tund, the homeless man, looked up at the sky, the rain mixing with his tears. "Aisha, my Aisha is alive." But as the crowd buzzed with the shocking revelation, a sleek black car pulled up on the distant road. A young woman, elegant and poised, stepped out, watching the scene unfold from afar. She had her father's eyes, the same eyes as the man weeping in the mud. She was Aisha, and she had come to Lagos not to mourn a billionaire, but to find the father she had never known, and to take back everything that was stolen from him. The cemetery was in chaos. The drizzle had turned into a downpour, mirroring the storm of emotions raging through the crowd. The wealthy mourners, who had come to pay their respects, were now whispering furiously about the unbelievable scene they had just witnessed. Tun, the homeless man, remained on his knees in the mud, his body shaking with sobs. The word Aisha fell from his lips like a prayer. My daughter, she's alive. Michael Suleiman stood frozen, his perfect world shattered. The inheritance he had taken for granted was now threatened by a ghost from his father's past. His mind raced, calculating the damage. A daughter. How could his father have kept this secret? He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the rain, and whispers, "This is nonsense. This man is clearly mentally ill. My father never mentioned a brother or a daughter. This is a scam." But Alhaji Dantata, the old family friend, helped Tun to his feet. His eyes were filled with tears as he looked at Michael. "I knew your father when we were all young men in the university. This is Tun Suleiman, your uncle. They were inseparable until they fell in love with the same woman." The crowd gasped again. The plot thickened. "Your father chose business over family," Dantata continued, his voice heavy with memory. "He married for money and connections. Tund was left with nothing." Tund looked at Michael, his eyes pleading. "I don't want your money, I just want my daughter. Where is she?" As if on cue, the elegant young woman who had been watching from the distant road began walking toward them. Her high heels sank into the wet grass, but she moved with determination. Every eye turned to watch her approach. She stopped before the group, her gaze moving from the open casket to Tun's tear-streaked face, and finally to Michael's cold, angry eyes. "My name is Aisha Suleiman," she said, her voice clear and steady despite the tension. "I believe you've been looking for me." Tun stumbled forward, his hands trembling as he reached out to touch her face. "Aisha, my little Aisha, is it really you?" Aisha's composed expression softened as she looked at the broken man before her. "Yes, Baba, it's me." The moment was shattered by Michael's cold laughter. "This is too convenient. A homeless man appears out of nowhere, and now this. This stranger claims to be family. Where is your proof?" Aisha reached into her elegant handbag and pulled out a worn leather wallet. From it, she extracted a small, faded photograph and handed it to Alhaji Dantata. The old man's eyes widened as he looked at the picture. "It's them. It's Tund and Mariam. This is your mother, Aisha." He turned to show Michael the photo. "There's no doubt. She has Mariam's eyes and Tund's smile." But Michael wasn't looking at the photo. His eyes were fixed on something else Aisha had pulled from her bag, a legal document. "What is that?" he demanded. "This," Aisha said calmly, "is my birth certificate. And this," she pulled out another paper, "is a DNA test result confirming Alhaji Ibrahim Suleiman as my biological father. He knew about me. He's been supporting my education in London for the past 15 years. The crowd erupted in fresh excitement. Cameras flashed as journalists who had come to cover the billionaire's funeral now had the story of a lifetime. Michael's face turned pale. "This is impossible. My father would have told me." "Would he?" Aisha's voice was gentle but firm. "Would he have told you that he got his startup money by stealing his brother's business idea? That he married your mother for her family's connections while his brother's girlfriend was pregnant with me?" Tun stared at Aisha, his eyes filled with wonder and pain. "You knew. All this time you knew who I was." Aisha turned to her father, her eyes glistening with tears. "Mama told me everything before she died. She gave me all the documents. She made me promise to find you when the time was right." The rain continued to fall as father and daughter embraced for the first time in 25 years. The crowd watched, some with tears in their eyes, others with calculating looks. Michael watched the scene with growing horror. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was about his father's legacy, about the foundation upon which the Suleiman Empire had been built. If these allegations became public, the company's stock would plummet. He had to act fast. "Everyone, please." Michael raised his voice, trying to regain control of the situation. "This is still my father's funeral. Let us show some respect." But the damage was done. The story was already spreading across social media. #Billionaire secret daughter was trending in Lagos. As the crowd began to disperse, Alhaji Dantata approached Michael. "We need to talk about the will. As the family lawyer, I can tell you that Ibrahim made provisions for all his children." Michael's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, all his children?" Dantata looked uncomfortable. "There's a sealed envelope in my safe. Your father gave it to me years ago. He said it was to be opened only if Tund or his daughter ever came forward." Aisha, who had been helping her trembling father toward a waiting car, overheard this. She turned and looked directly at Michael. "I don't want to fight, cousin," she said. "I just want what's rightfully my father's share, the share that was stolen from him." Michael forced a smile, though his eyes remained cold. "Of course, we're family, we should settle this privately." But as Aisha and Tund drove away, and as the cemetery workers finally closed the casket containing Ibrahim Suleiman, Michael pulled out his phone and made a call. "Get me our best lawyer," he whispered urgently, "and find out everything you can about this Aisha Suleiman. I want to know every detail of her life." Meanwhile in the car, Tund held his daughter's hand as if afraid she would disappear. "How did you find me?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. Aisha smiled gently. "I hired a private investigator when Mama died. He tracked you to Lagos. I've been watching you for weeks, trying to find the right moment to approach you." Tund's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I'm so ashamed I became this." He gestured at his dirty clothes. "After I lost your mother and then you, I lost myself." "You have nothing to be ashamed of, Baba," Aisha said firmly. "We're going to get you cleaned up and then we're going to claim what's ours." As the car navigated through the busy Lagos streets, Aisha looked out at the city that had taken everything from her father, and the city that would now give it back. But she didn't see the dark sedan following them at a discreet distance. Michael had already put his plan into motion. The battle for the Suleiman Empire had begun, and Aisha had just walked into the lion's den. The sleek black car carrying Aisha and Tund pulled up to a modest but clean hotel in Ikja, a world away from the opulent Suleiman mansion. Aisha had chosen this place precisely because Michael would never think to look for them here. As they stepped into the simple room, Tund looked around with wide, uncertain eyes. After years of sleeping on cardboard in alleyways, the clean bed and running water felt like unimaginable luxury. "Baba," Aisha said softly, guiding him toward the bathroom. "There are clean clothes on the counter. Take a shower. I've ordered food for us." While Tund showered, Aisha stood by the window, watching the city lights begin to twinkle in the evening haze. Her mind raced with everything that had happened. Finding her father had been her mother's dying wish, but now that she had, the path ahead seemed more dangerous than she'd anticipated. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. 30 minutes later, a transformed Tund emerged from the bathroom. Clean-shaven, wearing the simple but clean clothes Aisha had bought, he looked like a different man. The years of hardship were still etched on his face, but now there was hope in his eyes. "You look so much like your mother," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Aisha smiled and gestured to the food she'd laid out on the small table. "Come, eat. We have much to discuss." As they ate, Tund told his daughter everything. How he and Ibrahim had come to Lagos as young men full of dreams. How they'd started a small import-export business together. How they'd both fallen in love with Mariam, the beautiful daughter of a business associate. "Ibrahim was always the ambitious one," Tund said, his eyes distant with memory. "When our business started growing, he wanted to expand faster than I was comfortable with. Then he found out that Mariam was pregnant. With you." He took a shaky breath. "He made me an offer. He would marry Mariam and raise you as his own, and in return, he would buy out my share of the business for a fraction of what it was worth. He said it was the only way to secure the family's future." Aisha reached across the table to hold his hand. What happened? Tun's eyes filled with tears. I refused. I loved Mariam. I wanted to raise my child, but then the fire happened. Fire? Our warehouse burned to the ground. All our inventory, our records, everything. The insurance company said it was arson and refused to pay. I lost everything overnight. Tun's voice dropped to a whisper. I always suspected Ibrahim arranged it, but I could never prove it. After the fire, he continued, I had nothing to offer Mariam. She came from a wealthy family. They would never have let her marry a bankrupt man. Ibrahim stepped in, married her, and claimed you as his daughter. Her family was thrilled. Aisha's mind reeled, but Mama never loved him. Never, Tun said firmly. She married him to give you a good life, but her heart was broken. She died of pneumonia just 2 years later, but I think she died of a broken heart. A sudden knock on the door made them both jump. Aisha approached the door cautiously. Who is it? Alhaji Dentada, came the familiar voice. She opened the door to find the old lawyer, looking troubled and carrying a briefcase. I'm sorry to disturb you, he said, his eyes widening when he saw the cleaned-up Tund. My God, Tund, you look like your old self. What's wrong? Aisha asked, sensing his unease. Dentada entered the room and placed his briefcase on the table. Michael has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. He's moving to have himself installed as permanent CEO and to freeze all assets until the inheritance situation is resolved. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. This is what your father left for you, Tund. He gave it to me 15 years ago with strict instructions that it was only to be opened if you ever came forward. Tund took the envelope with trembling hands. It was heavy, thick with contents. He broke the seal and pulled out several documents. The first was a letter in Ibrahim's distinctive handwriting. My dear brother Tund, if you are reading this, then I am dead and you have finally found the courage to face me. Or perhaps Aisha has found you. I have lived every day of my life with the weight of what I did to you. I stole your business, your love, and your daughter. There is no forgiveness for what I have done. Enclosed you will find 1. The deed to our original family land in the village. 2. Stock certificates, representing 25% of Suleiman Group. 3. A signed confession about the warehouse fire. 4. A legal document acknowledging Aisha as my biological daughter. I have provided for Aisha's education and future, but the company rightfully belongs to you as much as to me. The 25% stake makes you the second largest shareholder after Michael. I can only hope that in death, I can give you some of what I took from you in life. Your unworthy brother, Ibrahim. Tund read the letter aloud, his voice breaking on the final words. Tears streamed down his face, tears of grief, of anger, but also of some small measure of closure. Aisha took the documents and examined them carefully. The stock certificates were genuine. The confession about the fire was detailed and included the name of the man Ibrahim had hired to set it. We have him, she whispered, her eyes blazing with determination. We have proof of everything. But Dentada looked worried. Michael has already mobilized his resources. He's claiming that you, he looked at Aisha, are an imposter and that Tund is mentally unstable. He's gathering his own evidence. As if on cue, Aisha's phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. Stop now or you'll regret it. You have 24 hours to leave Lagos. Aisha showed the message to the others. He's threatening us. Tund stood up, a new strength in his posture. No, I've run from your uncle for too long. I won't run anymore. But we need to be smart, Dentada cautioned. Michael controls the company security, the finances, and most of the board. We need irrefutable proof. Aisha's eyes fell on the confession document. The man Ibrahim hired to set the fire, do you think he's still alive? Dentada's eyes widened. Joseph Okoro, Yes, he's alive. He served 10 years in prison for arson, but he was released about 5 years ago. I heard he runs a small bar in Badagry. Then that's where we start, Aisha said firmly. We find Joseph Okoro and get him to confirm Ibrahim's confession. The plan was set. They would drive to Badagry first thing in the morning to find Joseph, while Dantata would delay the board meeting as long as possible. But as Dantata left the hotel room, he failed to notice the man sitting in a car across the street, watching through binoculars. The man picked up his phone. Sir, the lawyer was just here. They're planning something. Should I stop them? Michael's voice came through cold and clear. No, let them lead us to whatever evidence they think they have. Then we'll destroy it. The next morning, as Aisha and Tun began their journey to Badagry, they had no idea they were being followed by Michael's men. The net was closing in and the race for evidence had begun. The journey to Badagry was tense. Aisha drove carefully, her eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. Tun sat beside her, clutching the confession letter like a lifeline. Baba, Aisha said softly, when this is over, I want to hear stories about your childhood with Ibrahim. The good stories. Tund managed a small smile. We were inseparable once. Like two kernels on one corn cob, our mother used to say. Ibrahim always protected me when we were boys. The irony of his words hung heavy in the air. They found Joseph Okoro's bar in a dusty corner of Badagry, a simple structure with faded paint and a rusty sign that read Joe's Place. Inside, a grizzled man in his late 50s was wiping glasses behind the counter. Joseph Okoro, Aisha asked. The man's eyes narrowed. Who's asking? Tun stepped forward, placing Ibrahim's confession on the counter. We need to talk about the warehouse fire of 1998. Joseph's face paled. I have nothing to say about that. I served my time. We're not here to cause trouble, Aisha said gently. We just need you to confirm what's written here. As Joseph read the confession, his hands began to tremble. All these years, I thought only I carried this burden. He looked at Tund with pity in his eyes. He destroyed you to build himself. Suddenly, the door burst open. 3 large men entered, led by Michael's lawyer, Mr. Chukwu. Joseph Okoro, Mr. Chukwu said smoothly, these people are harassing you. We're here to make sure they leave you alone. Aisha stood her ground. We're not leaving without his statement. Mr. Chukwu smiled coldly. I'm afraid you don't have a choice. He nodded to his men, who moved toward Joseph menacingly. But before they could reach him, police cars pulled up outside, sirens blaring. Alhaji Dantata stepped out, followed by several officers. Thank you for leading us to our witness, Mr. Chukwu, Dantata said with a satisfied smile. We've been recording everything. He tapped his phone. Attempted witness intimidation is a serious crime. As the police took Mr. Chukwu and his men away, Joseph looked at Tund with new respect. For what it's worth, he said, I'm willing to testify. Your brother ruined my life too. The board meeting. Back in Lagos, the Suleiman Group boardroom was buzzing with tension. Michael sat at the head of the table, trying to project confidence. Gentlemen, he began, as my father's only legitimate heir. The doors swung open. Aisha entered, followed by Tun, Dantata, and Joseph Okoro. Every head turned. You're too late, Michael sneered. The vote is already. Actually, interrupted the board chairman, we've been reviewing some fascinating documents. He held up the stock certificates. It appears Mr. Tun Suleiman owns 25% of this company. The room erupted in chatter. But he's mentally unstable, Michael protested. Aisha stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. My father is as sound of mind as any person in this room, but let's talk about mental stability, cousin. She turned to Joseph. Please tell them what you told the police. As Joseph recounted the story of the warehouse fire, backed by Ibrahim's written confession, the board members listened in stunned silence. Michael's face grew paler with each word. When Joseph finished, the chairman looked at Michael with disgust. "Your father built this company on theft and arson. The statute of limitations has expired," Michael cried desperately. "Perhaps for the crime," Dentata said, "but not for the consequences. The board has the power to remove any CEO who obtained their position through fraudulent means." One by one, the board members voted. The result was unanimous. Michael was removed as CEO immediately. The new beginning. 6 months later, the Suleiman Group had been transformed. Tund, though initially reluctant, had taken over as chairman with Aisha as CEO. Together they had 1. Sold off Michael's luxury assets to repay the initial investment Ibrahim had stolen from Tund. 2. Established a foundation for homeless entrepreneurs in Tund's name. 3. Implemented ethical business practices that actually increased profitability. Michael had fled the country, his reputation in ruins. On a sunny Saturday morning, Aisha and Tund stood before a simple grave in their ancestral village. Fresh flowers adorned Ibrahim's final resting place. "I forgive you, brother," Tund whispered, placing a hand on the headstone. "You were consumed by ambition, but in the end you tried to make things right." Aisha squeezed her father's hand. "He brought us together in the end." As they turned to leave, Tund paused. "You know, I used to dream of this, having my daughter by my side making peace with my past, but I never believed it would happen." "Sometimes," Aisha said, smiling, "the dreams that seem most impossible are the ones that come true in ways we never expected." They walked back to the car together, father and daughter, ready to face whatever the future held together. End of story. My dear listeners, if this story has touched your heart, then follow our channel, Africa Sleeping Story, so you never miss a part of this thrilling tale. And if you have a moment, please leave a comment below telling us what you think will happen next. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for listening and sweet dreams.